Welcome to Serial Entrepreneur Club. It's pretty cool this week that we have a new website. So if you get a chance, jump on over there and check it out. But I'm also excited to see that on Google, we are ranking now on page 1 for the term Serial Entrepreneur Space Club. So you can see the real power of the indexing on Google and why we have a domain name that sits outside of Clubhouse. Now, we're still waiting to get a full-time club established, but we're optimistic it will happen soon. Today, we have Yosef Martin, a serial entrepreneur and a good friend of mine who recently sold BoxyCharm for $500 million. Is that correct? Holy jeez.
I technically sold a piece of it, and the valuation was 500 million, but I roll it over to the combined entity, whatever I didn't sell.
All right, who's counting? All right. I will also join in today with Yosef and talk about why the opportunity to start a business today on Clubhouse is the ideal time. And I will actually share with you some of my thoughts on what our team is doing here to launch some very large clubs on Clubhouse and what that's going to take. We're also joined by the author of Everything I Know About Business and Marketing I Learned from the Toxic Avenger, and our co-host, Jeffrey Sass, and the president of .club, Michelle Van Tilburg. Today, our lead moderator will be Rachel Lashbrook, and she is, of course, the author of the SE blog and co-host. Over to the recap with Rachel.
Thank you, Colin. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with you again. I'm really enjoying these weekly sessions on Friday. Just to recap, last week we talked about branding yourself on Clubhouse specifically, and pretty much unanimously, everyone who contributed to this conversation, such as Jeff and Gary Henderson and Ish Milley, everyone unanimously decided that using your authentic voice, being authentic, is one of the most important parts of building your brand. We also made mention of having a meticulous profile and bio on Clubhouse, using a .club extension, offering your services, migrating to social media, especially. That was a really big one that nearly everyone decided was important as well. Posting stories about yourself on Instagram and, kind of capturing your viewers in order to follow up with them later and connect outside of Clubhouse. So open the door on Clubhouse and then step through the door in a way to make your brand bigger. In following with that, I really enjoyed what Gary had to say about having the right message to the right audience at the right time with the right expectation, in which case you'll deliver the right results. And I think that's really a sound mantra to keep in mind when you're thinking about your message and connecting with others. So thank you for that. That is our recap. And now to what we're all here for. We want to talk to Joe, if I may, about starting his business, BoxyCharm. So I'm really curious, Joe, could you tell us how you started your business to begin with?
Yes. So I think in order to understand how I started BoxyCharm, we have to go back to my first company called Merchandise Liquidators, because that was the foundation of BoxyCharm. So in a nutshell, before I actually do it, for those in the room that don't know what BoxyCharm is, it's a monthly beauty subscription box. I started the company in 2013, mid-2013. It was in beta. And I kind of gave it the real push in early 2014. The concept was not new. I didn't invent the concept. Subscription boxes started around 2010 with Birchbox. They were the pioneers. But the concept was a box gives 5 sample size items in which they go to a makeup brand out there and they said, look, get all those samples for free anyway. You're giving them away for free. Give it to us and we're going to give it to members and we're going to create more buyers for you. That was the concept. So when I wanted to start BoxyCharm, I heard of the concept, and I'll get to how later on once I'll go back in chronologically. I figured, well, I'm a second mover, and what's going to be my advantage? And I figured, well, a subscription box is asking for free products. You cannot scale a business by picking up free stuff from people. Eventually, it's going to have an issue, especially if I'll show up and I'll say, well, can I create economics in which I can pay the cost of goods for the brand? And then I also learned that sample size is kind of like at that time in 2013 when I got into this, it was primarily given for hair and skincare products, not really for color cosmetics, because of the nature of the beast. It's just like that. And also, when you do sample sizes for color cosmetics, it would literally cost you the same like a full size in many cases. So I said, why not doing a full size product and just pay the cost of goods? Because the profit in beauty is just so high. So I decided to charge $21 and then pay $10 for the cost of goods. Then add all the fulfillment cost, shipping cost. I was really putting it into, like I measured everything with a needle, making sure that everything is going to be super precise so I can get the lowest cost of goods. Everything had to be under a pound and every penny count. And I figure I'll get the cheapest packaging and cheapest fulfillment, cheapest everything, and then the cheapest shipping rate if I do it in a particular process. So I can put everything towards products, and then the remainder is going to be my profit. Mm-hmm. So I came up with a proposition that was, I'll pay you the cost of goods in full. You do not have to do sample size. So now it opened doors to color cosmetics, which wasn't available at the time as much in a subscription box, and it was full size. So instead of charging $10 at the time, we charged $21. But people receive full-size items, eyeshadow palettes, things that they could never even dream of receiving in subscription boxes that would give them small samples. Mm-hmm. So that was the process in which I entered this. But big reason about why I want to go back, it's because you know, when I started my first company, I was a full-time international student, and the first company was a liquidation business. And by the way, stop me if you have any questions. So feel free to interrupt with questions. But I came down, I finished the military service in Israel. I was just trying to get into school. I went into a community college, and then I got into FIU, Florida International University, doing my business degree over here. And I was trying to pay the out-of-state tuition. And I had to eventually open a business to try and trade and get some cash to pay. And the company called Merchandise Liquidators. A long story short, and I don't want to dive into this one, the biggest factor behind building a business and learning how to be an entrepreneur, I learned marketing, internet marketing, precisely. Around 2004, 2005, it was all around SEO, and there was a whole different world back then, but I became pretty damn good, not because I'm that just smart or anything. I'm just pretty okay, but not genius. It just that was the only means for me to create awareness over my business in a world where I had to compete with giant liquidation companies and wholesalers. I was working from my garage. I opened the company with a couple $100. So I had to figure out how to promote myself. So SEO was the thing. None of them knew how to do it, or most of them didn't know how to do it. So it was easy for me to create awareness and later on build a business. And throughout the years, I ended up graduating, put more time and emphasis into the business. I grew the company to about 10 million in sales, and I had already two warehouses, office space, employees, and I was really more mature as an entrepreneur. I was a little bit more seasoned, and I knew how to prioritize based on what's important and what's urgent and so on. And I saw an opportunity in 2012 around makeup in the subscription space. And that's how I decided to enter the space. And my first question was, when I heard about the subscription box, I mean, we got an order from a subscription box for a bunch of products, and I asked them, who is this client? We had a staff meeting on a Friday, and we would go over some odd sales and kind of like learn from each other. And every salesperson would talk about this week. And we heard about that order that we received from a company called Glossybox. So I asked them, what's Glossybox? And they told me it's a subscription box. What's a subscription box? They told me what it is. And I was fascinated from the concept. And my first question was, all right, so how do they promote themselves? And I just needed to hear one thing. I wanted to hear it's all online, it's all internet stuff, because if that was traditional media, I would have lost focus. If that person would say, I heard about this in the radio, if the salesperson was saying, I heard about them in the radio or on billboards or something like this, I wouldn't even care about this, and I would just move on with my day. But because he said it was all Instagram, I said, aha, I can do it. All right. So that's when I just got my mind into it. And when something gets into your head, you just proceed with this. And you know what, between being a marketer, as a marketing CEO, and eventually evolving the product and editing the product in the box and understanding how to build everything, I was able to scale the company. And just to give you an indication, it was profitable really, literally since almost inception within a few months. And we scaled first year, it was, let's just skip 2013 because it was all beta. But 2014 was 1.8, and then 10, 20, 50, 100 and change, 200 and change millions, right? Then eventually 2020 was 400 and something million, close to 500 million. And that's when our biggest competitor, actually, which came in, they were backed by Texas Pacific Group. They came and they acquired a big piece of the company, and we roll over the remainder into a combined entity called Beauty for All Industries. And now we're obviously the largest subscription box service globally, with over 4 million members all combined and grossing over $1 billion in sales.
Wow.
Yosef, I have a question real quick since you asked. What was, being a serial entrepreneur, what was something that you experienced or learned from merchandise liquidators that really helped you when you started BoxyCharm? What was something that really stood out as a lesson that you either avoided something or did something differently because of the experience you had?
I'll tell you that there are plenty of tactical knowledge, know-how that I learned, and a lot of things that I needed to see to actually go through, to experience, and to evolve. Your perspective changed when you run a company for about 10, 20 years. Well, not 20 years, but about 20 years into it, or 9 years into it before I opened BoxyCharm. So you really see tons of things. But if I have to pull one, I think the growing you're just thinking big. I mean, thinking big is not something that people would think about this first. Everyone said, yeah, I want to think big. But for me, it was one particular moment in my time where I remember that precisely. It was a phone call. I was at that time grossing a couple $100,000 in gross revenue, perhaps $1 million at most, but that was gross revenue. And I had quite a few colleagues that we used to buy and sell merchandise off of each other, and one of them was on a call with me, and he had a bigger company at the time, but no internet presence. He was just still old school type. He was just 20 years in business, I guess, and we're discussing, and he said something about the way I'm making my millions, and that's a quote. He actually said that words. So I told me, yeah, but you mean you gross millions, but you're not really taking home millions. No. I take 3 to 5 million a year, depends how good the year was, and so on. And 2009 was my best year ever. And he was breaking down all the numbers for me and how and why and everything else. And I remember that did something to me. And that was from that day on, everything changed. I mean, that was literally like a hockey stick, like a parabola on the right side. The growth for merchandise liquidators was like from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10. It was just growing fast. It was just and it took me years to go back in time and understand why it was so significant. Because you see it all the time. You see people telling you about this all the time. You see millionaires, multimillionaires on TV and everywhere, but you start associating with people, and eventually you find out that the person you associate with actually does that all the time, and he does exactly what you're doing, not even as good on the internet side. He doesn't even have internet, yet he does something about the buying and selling better than you, and you're not doing that. And the reason it was significant, it was because, I guess if I had to take it all in, all those years, I would see it, but I never humanized it. It was always being through an idealization idea when you see people making all that money. But when finally I'm dealing with a person on a day-to-day, perhaps for 2-3 years already, and you finally find out that he does that, it expands the limits in your head. Your subconscious, what gives you all the motivation, all the emotions, or motivation is an emotion. And suddenly it never gave you the motivation to actually do things big. It was always giving me the motivation to do what's really available right now. Not big, just do this one. Don't think too big, because this is right now available, go and do it. But once it actually hears, look, here's the human, I'm humanizing the person, it has been humanized for too long, and I can do it, and I can do it better. Now, once your subconscious believes it, because your conscious believes it all the time, your neocortex knows that, but not your subconscious. Your subconscious doesn't register that. Once it does, it goes to your front end neocortex and said, here's all the motivation you need, now go and get it. Here it is. Now, I believe in that. We do see a proof of concept by a person that we totally humanize, go and do it. And it was literally a completely behavioral change, habits and discipline that changed. Everything changed in my performance as a person. I didn't need any lectures from Tony Robbins, which I've never heard of at that time. I didn't need any of those stuff. I just needed to know subconsciously that it was real and you can actually do it. And once you know it's available out there, you go and you get it. So that was my most important moment as an entrepreneur, if I had to grasp it all in, because you can actually see it. There's actually data to back it up. That was before and after that conversation. And eventually, when you enter a new business, your mind is already there. You're thinking bigger, and nothing looks unachievable in your subconscious, and that's how you can move on.
Wow. Following that, getting in a new business and opportunities, what do you think some of the opportunities are for startups here on Clubhouse?
Well, I definitely see different networking opportunities. I would say networking is a big deal. I do know some that are doing pretty well by all means in their industry. So, but it really depends what you do. So, without being tactical, I would tell you, look, if you basically are a motivational speaker or so on, you're going to jump on Clubhouse and you can literally build your personal brand. But assuming that's not the case, because I want to go and give it kind of like a higher level view, what happened is with Clubhouse, the good thing about that is that you have the ability to actually connect in a different level versus Instagram or Facebook. You can sit on stage with other people. You might perhaps go on stage to ask questions, and it helps you connect with people that are actually doing something that you're trying to achieve, and you put your time with those people versus just looking at them virtually, right, through videos and so on. I think that makes plays a big role, and it can literally influence people in many, many ways. But if you want to look at the tactical level, it really comes down to what you do, right? If your particular business is going to be like mine, then you shouldn't spend too much time on Clubhouse. You should jump into Clubhouse to hear some people. If there is an interesting topic, you can connect with friends. You might be able to build a little club around your business, so you can create communities. But it wouldn't be necessarily for your personal safe to be there. I think the other part in Clubhouse, building communities. Now, if you think of, let's just say you have again a business that has a need of a community. The term community is being used very excessively for the wrong reasons, right? What is a community, right? A community is a group of people in the same space with the same interest activating together, right? So if I go and I want to build a community around my energy drink, and I'll just throw an example because I do not own an energy drink, right? But people want to talk about your energy drink. You're going to say, well, on my Instagram, I have so many followers and that is a community. And I say, it's not a community. It's just a place where people look at you online. I need something deeper than that. Everyone has a page today. How can you do it better than your competition? So the way you can go in and see it is, well, I'm going to go and create a group on Facebook. Now that might turn into a community when you move them from one place to another. When you go and you give announcements around certain events you want to do, and they move from one page to another, and you can communicate and you you introduce the option for them to create their own fan group pages on Facebook. And then you have an organic creation of groups around your company, right? BoxyCharm, we have over 100 of those on Facebook. Some of them have tens of thousands of people, and all they do is talk about makeup and what they received, and let's switch products among each other. Now, where Clubhouse can come into play is just amplification of your community, in which I can go and say, well, all the charmers, we call our member charmers. We say, well, we're going to be having a room, and we're going to be talking to, say, Natasha Denona, or a particular makeup brand owner that is going to have her product in the box, and we're just going to ask her about her brand, and we're going to let you know her story and so on. Now, we're going to announce that, for an example, for instance, on Clubhouse, on our platforms, and now there's another point of connection between them. You just amplify that. You move them to another place, and moving from Instagram into Clubhouse, it's going to be called it's an activation. Okay, they acted on something together, so now people are going to be connected a little bit more, and what's going to unify them is no longer just going to be on images. It's also going to be hearing their voice. They'll feel more connected, and the common denominator would be, say, BoxyCharm in that case. Okay, so for my opinion, it is the opportunity for many brands to use it to amplify their communities, where once it's going to open up to everyone, it's going to be already out there, and it's going to be not new anymore. It would be easier to start now as a first mover.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned activation and acting moving forward, and the amplification of your brand or what you have going on. And these are things that I'm discovering now as I am getting more used to Clubhouse myself. Speaking of amplification and Clubhouse and activation, I think Colin has some really cool ideas around Clubhouse. He's the founder of .club, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He's got a lot of experience. So, Colin, I've heard you talk about Clubhouse being a paradigm shift. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. And I think Yosef and I have had very different paths. He's built a much larger company than I've ever built. In my case, I've done a lot more companies. I tend to sell them off earlier and let others make the profit. Yosef, you've been smart and you've held on to yours with BoxyCharm. And it's nice to see you still continue to own part of the IPSI BoxyCharm. Looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
Let me tell you, selling boxes is a really fun thing, especially when they're black boxes. It's really cool.
Well, it's not too different than .club. We sell a subscription. It's digital. You sell a subscription. It's makeup products. So it's actually, we both love the subscription business. That's where we're very similar. I had the opportunity to talk at MIT on the topic of starting a company, scaling a company, exiting, and repeating that process over and over and over again. And what I've seen through the times of the companies that I've done, and it's been about 7 companies or so where we started them and built them up and sold them off, is that there are a number of patterns that existed. And one of the patterns of the types of companies that I've started have been related to a change in technology or a change in regulation. Back in the early days of the 90s, it was dial-up internet, and we launched an internet service provider. We also launched 2 Cows, and that was a software download provider and a domain name provider. Moving to 2000, we did a company called Hostopia, and we caught the broadband wave. We launched a SaaS product, not a Jeffrey SaaS, but a software as a service product, which is later we later called it application service provider. And today we know it as cloud computing. We really were pioneers in that space. And then 2012, we saw the deregulation of the namespace, and we applied for .club domain extensions. Later, I invested in 2 companies, paw.com and Meowingtons, which are fairly large e-commerce sites on the internet in the pet space. And the paradigm shift there was really the low cost and easy way to get your store set up with a Shopify store, and also the acceptance of end users buying directly from the manufacturers. And I know that Amazon populated the concept of buying online, but now we're starting to see the rise of micro brands, and that's very exciting. So Clubhouse is blowing up. I believe it is the next paradigm shift. I think we have almost 10 million users, up 10x over 2 months, and I believe by the end of the year we'll have over 100 million on this platform. And I believe that entrepreneurs have a real opportunity here to seize the day. You know, why is it that Facebook, a $500 billion company, didn't start Clubhouse? I was asking myself that the other day and thinking, you know what? They got a lot of money and they got a lot of smart people, but somehow these kids came out and they were able to manage to launch a very successful social platform that was very different. And the fact of the matter is, innovation dries up in larger organizations. After I sold my hosting company, Hostopia, I worked for 3 years at a Fortune 1000 company, and I have to say, it's just the number of people there who would bring up ideas. If it failed, they were fired, and if you succeeded, you got a pat on your back. The fact of the matter is, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be free. You want to get out there, and you want to make things happen, and you're also taking not just financial risk, but you're taking a reputational risk. You're taking a lot of risks to be an entrepreneur, and you want that reward if you do pull it off. So fundamentally, big companies are risk averse. So what are the things you can do? We talked about becoming an influencer. Ish is on stage right now. He's one of the top influencers in the world, and we'll hear a little bit from him in a minute. We also talked about other things like networking and, you know, working with brands to bring them on Clubhouse. I think one of the more compelling ones for me is starting a club on Clubhouse. So what I'd like to do right now is just tell you a little bit about what we are thinking. We believe that in order to really make money starting a club on Clubhouse, one, you got to get approved, and we all know that's a challenge. But we believe that if you can establish a category killer in a particular industry, and what I mean by category killer, think about single word space club. And I believe that industry has to spend billions and billions of dollars in advertising. And we think that's one of the keys. The second is we do believe it needs a great domain name. And I believe that name, the most popular we have seen on Clubhouse is a .club. We believe a name .club works perfectly. I have seen some name club.coms, and I've seen some name club.orgs as well. But we obviously, you know, we're biased, as you know, but we do believe that .club is the perfect name for that. And I think we saw that with Serial Entrepreneur Club, how it got indexed in Google. So now you can find Serial Entrepreneur Club on Google. You can't find it on Clubhouse yet. We're not approved yet. But when we are approved, if you type in Serial Entrepreneur on either of those two platforms, you will be able to find us. I know in the past we've seen a lot of misspelled .coms, and that was very popular. But from an SEO perspective, having a category killer word domain and a category killer name on Clubhouse, it really will support your success. Now, I've said it before, it's all about the content stupid, right? And the fact of the matter is, if you look at Startup Club, they have a great club, a great name, and they also have great content. The industry needs to be big, though. I do love my King Charles Spaniels. I would start a King Charles Spaniel club. I actually have the domain name. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to have a lot of people show up to my club to make it financially viable. I do believe you also have to have a passion around your club, because it takes a long time and a lot of energy to put that club up. And the last thing I will say, I believe that it will require some money to establish these larger clubs, as you need a lot of support from people. And although you can ask for volunteers to help, and Clubhouse has been great at that, over time, those volunteers should not be taken advantage of, and they should be compensated. Look, this is a very special time in history, and I'm so honored and excited to be part of history once again with the opportunity to start new businesses on Clubhouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Do you have any plans for Clubhouse, and what are you up to with Clubhouse and business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm new. I'm new like everybody else in this room. I think Yosef and I started almost at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, for me, it's right now, it's just been visiting and learning and speaking in different rooms. And yesterday I got pulled into a room from Norm Farrar. He asked me to come in. It was pitched to the podcasters. And then he threw me on stage and I actually literally had to do a pitch. So the number one thing is for me, it's learning. And I'm really enjoying that. But I look at all of these opportunities and I see now is the time in history to make the moves.
I think with Clubhouse, if I had to ask myself one thing that it contributed to me for the time I put in, and I'm on Clubhouse now once every 2-3 days. I think it really depends what you do, and don't just sink yourself into it. If you're trying to grow your business, you're just put the right amount of time. Don't spend too much time on Clubhouse. But my biggest thing is first new friends, new people that I learn from, great minds, and again connecting with old friends. For example, with you guys, with Collins, hearing the stories. Sometimes it's that part, but the second part, when you go on stage and you start speaking, I'm not used to speak on stages or anything, and I feel like while I do speak sometimes, and people ask, "How did you build it?" I feel like not the story gets better; it's also in my mind. I figure it helps because I go back in time and ask myself things that I should have kind of like always remind myself. It's kind of like rearrange your library, all your folders, put them into place, and it just gets you better. And you remember all the do's and don't do's that you had in the past. You kind of like forgotten, and it was there because you go back and you think about it again. So it was definitely something that I liked, and also it gives you new perspective. People would ask certain questions. You think you have an opinion, but in some rooms you have really good speakers, and some speakers are going to go and put out there something that might change your perspective on things, and it would help you literally think and make better decisions in the future. So I enjoyed Clubhouse. This just the point is you cannot get this on Instagram. That's my problem. You can get this on Instagram. It's very interactive. I enjoy this. And at the same time, I can put it aside while I do something else because I don't have to look at this. It's just there on the side, and I can write an email. I can do anything else, but I can even drive, and I don't have to worry about that. Again, something you usually don't do when you watch a YouTube video or Instagram.
Thank you, Yosef, for your insight. Michelle, do you have
Sure.
something? Sure.
So this is a question for Yosef. Obviously, you've reached the upper echelons of hiring influence marketers like Kardashians for your brand. I'm curious on your thoughts of brands opening up clubs and how influencer marketing might work in this context.
You're referring to clubs on Clubhouse or just regular?
Yes, in Clubhouse and off as well. I mean, we have thoughts on it where, influencers could come and talk authentically, but obviously you have a lot of experience here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on
you need to do it fast. It would be within a minute. Within a minute, it's going to be already overwhelming, and their input of doing so is going to be too much. And then if you don't have already a relationship with them, then you wouldn't be doing that. So if you want to invite influencers right now, it's still there where they would be honored to go and come and speak in a panel, but it would be a minute until the input for asking that request would be coming from everywhere, and then talk to my manager, pay me, and so on. So you'll have to do it fast.
Thank you.
It sounds like you have to kind of get in while the door is open, and that's now.
Yeah, this is why I love new platforms. And if it's gonna die or not, I mean, I know that Facebook is literally, they actually said they're gonna do their own version of Clubhouse and so on, which that was expected to happen. But I mean, this is the new part, because early adopters, marketers that are early adopters would always win and would be able to get a head start. I always like to see it as, I want to go to work. I wake up at 5 a.m. I have a whole traffic jam if I get on a highway at 7, but 5, I'm just making it in 15 minutes. And it would take me 70 miles to drive, and I would do it really quick. But if I just miss the momentum, now it's bumper to bumper, and it's game for anybody. So it's not, so it's about the momentum that you come in and you can amplify the exposure very quickly and get a relationship. You can build a relationship with people that are unachievable through other platforms, because over here you just don't have that input of people coming and knocking on their doors.
Thank you, Joe. I want to open up the floor to our speakers for any questions that we may have for Joseph or Colin, or even Ish as a influencer in the top echelon, as Michelle mentioned. Just to reset the room, let everyone know who might have dropped in just now. We are talking about starting a company on and off of Clubhouse. It is recorded. We will be posting this audio clip on our blog at serialentrepreneur.club. If you want to go back and check that out, look at the recaps with Rachel, that's me. So for the remainder of our session, I will open the floor up for questions.
Yeah, hi, Rachel. Thank you for having me. Good to listen to Yosef. Yosef, nice to meet you. I wanted to just circle back on the question Michelle asked about influencers on the platform. There are a lot of influencers on Clubhouse, right? I think, everyone knows Grant Cardone is on Clubhouse, and he's actively promoting not just his, brand, but also, connecting with people and enjoying the app like every one of us. And in terms of brands utilizing influencers on Clubhouse, what I've observed is you have to calculate and figure in how intensive it is to orchestrate a campaign on Clubhouse. Influencers are notorious for taking your money and charging you, a high amount of money, and they'll definitely perform on the deliverables. They'll mention your brand, but if it's not authentic, it's literally a waste of money. So you can pay a big name influencer to push any product, but if it's not authentic, if that influencer doesn't actually believe in that product, it's going to reflect in the way they present the brand. And that's a very common mistake a lot of brands make when they, reach out to influencers or try to use that channel.
Yeah, I have to agree, Aisha. It's a pleasure and glad to have you on a group. The way I see working with influencers is anyone can play basketball, but can you play at the NBA? Can you truly be a LeBron James quality, right? And that's where you see the Fashion Nova, the BoxyCharm, the big brands that are making it. It's because it's more than just playing with influencers. It's a lot more than that. It's no longer 2012, 2013, 2015, where there were few influencers out there and there wasn't a lot of traffic of advertisement going through them. So people believed everything they heard, and they would crush companies' websites once they said, "Oh, I love this lipstick." But eventually people started seeing through the ads, and then eventually it became more of, I would say, awareness builder and less numbers game for the brands. It was coming down from there. So expect to have a waste when you work with influencers and do a lot of testing until you find, while you're looking for the right ones. And you need to have a bigger purpose. So when you deal with an influencer, if you see influencers will make a brand relevant and famous today. That's going to be the biggest thing. And then if you want to make sure you grow the brand, you have to learn other means of marketing. You can do it also on influencers, but it's going to be only in the beginning. And with BoxyCharm, we grew to 100 million, a little bit over 100 million in sales only on influencers marketing, but it was imminent to see the curve of effectiveness declining and diminishing of return. And we knew that to turn into $1 billion business, we have to continue working with influencers. We love working with them, but it comes down to just performance marketing. We have to learn paid and so on. So it's an evolution. Great for the beginning to kick off your business. Great to keep it relevant. Great to keep it famous, but you need to know also performance.
I think you said something about momentum, Yosef. I think influencer marketing will help you create awareness. That's what it's great for. But at the end of the day, it's all about strategy, right? So whether you're utilizing influencer marketing or you're not, the strategy is what matters. So when you're utilizing that channel and you have momentum, especially in Clubhouse, I think that it's important to have a blended strategy. And that's, case by case. But, if you have success on Clubhouse, it's to me evidence that you can have success outside of Clubhouse, because people resonate with the message deeper in Clubhouse, but there are other strategies that you can employ outside of Clubhouse to get the same results. So just keeping a blended strategy is very important with influencer marketing.
Ish and Yosef, I just want to add one thing. When you think about influencers and influence, influencer is a business term. Influence is a human term. And just because someone has a lot of followers and calls themselves an influencer doesn't mean they actually have influence. They don't have people that actually listen and follow. And that goes back to what Ish was saying about there has to be that organic, authentic connection between who you choose to represent your brand and your brand itself. Then they'll have influence, regardless of whether they call themselves an influencer. So it's not always the numbers. It's also that it's more important to have that connection and that human influence, not just the business term influencer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In a public domain, it would just register as influencer because you don't want to say Instagrammer, YouTuber. You just want to use one word, and the term already in the public domain. But absolutely, some are not influential, at least not in every category. I mean, bodybuilder would probably be more influential in their field versus if one day you tell them, use my teeth whitening, and let's see, he's probably not going to influence anyone to go and buy it, but it's nothing less than a brand builder, like Ish said. And it is absolutely right. I mean, you have to use multi-channel, you have to use Clubhouse, because if in the future we're going to see in Clubhouse 250,000 people listening to one person, and in the panel discussion, the term that club keeps coming up, or Fashion Nova, or BoxyCharm, or any other term, those people would have that in their mind. And if you believe still in the rule of 7, which you hear the name 7 times, it registers as a legitimate brand, then you just build a name, you just build a brand, and now you might not be, and now you just warm up yourself a whole funnel of people that heard about your brand. It's kind of like warming up the audience. And then eventually, as they see something on perhaps an ad on Facebook, or perhaps another text on Twitter coming in, they might go in and subscribe. So it's great additional, because if you want to be relevant, you kind of have to be everywhere. If not, you're not relevant. You're just advertising yourself. If I only hear about BoxyCharm on Pinterest, nowhere else, I understand it's a marketing tactic and that's it. It's just, but if you hear about this everywhere, your brain is being spent with basically being fed with the name everywhere. It looks like a legitimate brand, large company, all that, and it's easier for your subconscious to say, let me make a transaction now, let me look into it. So Clubhouse definitely needs to be an additional social media platform that needs to be, you want to have your brand heard over there.
I think a good use case was what Gary did last week and what Rachel is doing right now. She's taking the content and recording it, so it's getting amplified. That's the best practice, in my opinion, of how to utilize Clubhouse. Just taking that content, amplifying it. Now people who weren't able to be in the session can be part of the conversation, and you can do whatever you want with it. So I think just understanding that anything that happens in Clubhouse has its limitations in terms of content evaporating. That's a good way to seal that leak and amplify the content. So I love when I see people doing that, because I feel like there's so much powerful conversations that happen here on this platform that unfortunately we don't record it. So hopefully, that becomes a more prevalent trend.
Agree. What Collins was discussing. So, many times the conversation were around kind of like motivating entrepreneurs. And I think Elon Musk was saying, well, if I need to motivate you to be wealthy or successful, then I don't think I need to do it. But there is something to say about how do you talk about this with people? And how is it that someone like Collins and many others keep building companies and taking them again and again and again and succeeding again. And you might hear about people that had a success story, then lost everything, but came back again. So they lost all their money, but somehow they came back again. I think we all evolve when we build our first company, right? And we evolve mentally and we get better at that. So you might lose your money one day, or you might not, but you want to start again. One thing you never lose is what's in your head, right? You never lose what's in your head. So instead of thinking of going to school, and I personally went to the FIU, I got my degree as an obligation to stay legal in the United States. I didn't really think I need any of this, but it was me studying over there, but yet a couple of years into my company, I evolved, right? And no one can take it away. Can I ever use any of the tools I learned at my university to open anything? No. Can I do anything with this? No. It was the years that I spent as an entrepreneur, the time I spent as an entrepreneur. So when someone asked, give me a motivation, I said, well, you probably want to try opening a business. If you really want to be an entrepreneur, if you really think it's for you, try opening a business, because that would give you more value mentally in your head and experience than a university would ever give you. And if the first one doesn't work, it doesn't matter. My first one didn't work, my second one didn't work, but eventually you hit it, and every time you learn. So what do you want to do is put your time and money into a couple good years at university, or trying to make it in the entrepreneurial world, and that would just give you a different set of skill to study and learn. And the bets are, you'll always fall on your feet once you made it after the first time. You'll always fall on your feet in your second or third business.
Yosef, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And that was great advice. But so one thing I've noticed in Clubhouse with people that have enjoyed the level of success that you, Colin, Jeffrey, Michelle, is something called Masterminds. Have you ever been part of any Masterminds? And if so, have they been helpful in your success?
So I've never been in any I've been invited to some, but I have not done any of this, neither listening to or performed in any of them. Just time obligation and doing other things. But I'm probably going to be joining in some. I have not been to one though, so I have not.
All right, I think Thor had a question, and then Edna, followed by Ricky.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, guys. I forgot what my question is, but I did want to say with the follow-up, of Facebook wants to replicate this. I'm not worried at all about that, and I don't think Clubhouse should be worried either, because they tried to replicate a cryptocurrency, and we saw how that went. And my friend Abe on Twitter said, text doesn't provide the social fix that our voices do. Clubhouse is closer to real human connection. It's so much more satisfying on a deeper level, regardless of the content. And I think not only are these public rooms have been great, and like Ish said, where you record it and then you can put it on your platforms, but I think a lot of private rooms are going to spark up too in the future, where it's just like almost like a party, like where 3 or 4 people can get in a room, and that could be our own mastermind. And a lot of serendipitous moments and magic is happening on this app, because on Twitter or Facebook or even Instagram, you can't really get that that feel for who someone is. Like, someone could comment on your tweet and they could be the most successful person, but you just overlook it for whatever reason. And on here, you really can't do that. Like, the cream rises to the top, and it's almost like a podcast on steroids, where people are in a competition with each other, but the competition is who can provide the most value. And like, everyone benefits from that, because if you provide value, you're getting a following for your audience, but just everybody wins in the end. And thanks, Yosef, for, I came in late, but I heard your story, and it's just remarkable and motivational, and got me thinking about subscription services. And I would love to learn more about that and how you did that and the whole story.
Thank you. About the Clubhouse, I actually do think that you have to be very worried. I'm thinking, if I was to be Mark Zuckerberg right now and I want to compete with Clubhouse, how can I slice it and chop their head off and take it away from them? Simply by prioritize. So assuming I go and I do the same exact functionality that you see over here, and now someone has multiple of followers, and they're obviously all trying to stay relevant, anyone that's an influencer. Now I would say, well, if you're doing Clubhouse, you can literally do the Clubhouse with the functionality of video if you want or not. It doesn't matter. But I will prioritize the views or the views or the listening in your platform if you're to use it. So in that case, the mega ones, say the Grant Cardones or I don't know, any celebrities, they would say, well, if I'm going to do it on Clubhouse, that's assuming Clubhouse is still in beta and there aren't too many people. I'm going to do the same thing on my Instagram or on Facebook, and I will have a room with 250,000 people right away, and then my entire account gets prioritized, and I would make sure that my agent would actually tell them, if you use your Clubhouse platform, your actual platform on Facebook and Instagram will be prioritized. So you're going to go viral more often and everything else. Then you're going to see the big ones are throwing good quality content on the new platform. You would see because what's going to drive it is necessarily content, right? Content is king. So now you're going to have good, valuable content right away, starting over there. And you're going to say, well, I have to make a choice. I would actually go back to Facebook because everything else is going to be amplified. That's just the way I see. And I think it's a matter of how long until it takes Facebook to do it. If Facebook waits too long, then there's already a critical mass on Clubhouse, and it's going to be kind of like Snapchat or TikTok. Snapchat got hurt, but it didn't kill Snapchat. TikTok didn't even get hurt. It took them way too long to come up with Reels. But at the same time, Vines, they died. It's a momentum before the critical mass and after the critical mass. And are the mega ones going to move to the other place and forget about you? Because we have seen platforms die, and it was sudden and it was quick, and people forgot about it, and it was silence, and that just happened. So it's a momentum thing, how long it will take them, and then the execution.
Yeah, there's always a lot of opportunity when new platforms pop up.
Yeah.
So in the vein of starting a company on and off Clubhouse, I think Edna had a question.
Yeah, I just more of a comment and a little bit of a question for Yosef. You said something that just really resonated with me, and part of that is, failure is your greatest teacher, right? Like, you learn far more from failure than you do from success. And just to hear someone like yourself openly and outwardly say, hey, my first go around didn't go off the way it was supposed to. Neither did the second go around. But when you finally hit it, it clicks, and then things start to come together. The second thing that you mentioned that I thought was really fascinating, and, it's the speed of the leader, right? The speed of the leader, the speed of the team, how quick you are to take action and be the first one, out of the gate to come out and do things. Right now, there is a paradigm shift, and you're seeing a huge influx of people coming onto Clubhouse, and there's been it's been equated to like the gold rush, right? And something that was interesting to me when I was reading about the gold rush and how people flocked to California to make money off of gold. And a lot of people left empty-handed. They actually didn't, get a lot of gold. But the people that made money were the people that were selling the picks and the shovels. And so Clubhouse provides a phenomenal opportunity and platform for those people that are quick to adapt and quick to take action. And so if you can do those two things, then you will end up leading the pack in a way that others will not be able to catch up. And part of that is also creating, a term that's been coined, culture currency, where you're creating a culture and you're giving to others. And that is really where your brand building is taking off. And so that's kind of what I've seen here on Clubhouse. And so now here comes my question. My question to you is, when you first got started, Yosef, the idea came to you, you put it forward, you acted, and then launched, right? how long did it take you before you were, I guess, I don't know if there's such a thing as an overnight success, right? There's a lot of pain that goes along to getting there. But from inception to launching and then getting everything up and running and hitting the numbers that you did, what was that trajectory like? Like, how long did it take you?
Not much. I mean, my biggest factor was I need to figure out how to ship the boxes in large scale, and then to get packaging. That was the only thing that stops me. I'm always worried about momentum. I was worried about momentum at that time because Instagram was a new platform, and being very experienced with new platforms, I mean, doing SEO, but then Dig, Reddit, StumbleUpon used to be major tools for me for SEO, where I was going viral. At the time, you need to hit a front page. And if you hit the front page on whatever you post on, say, Dig, Reddit, or StumbleUpon, you would have thousands of links into that page. So the way I would always position it, I would go and create those pages that would get massive amount of links with couple terms that would resonate with the liquidation business, but it was just nothing less than a clickbait, I'm sorry. And eventually I would do a 3-or-1 redirect to my pages and into my liquidation sites, and kind of like rank within a day into the most competitive terms you ever want to do it. So that was nothing less than a tool for me to grow my liquidation business. And going through this, you understand that there are engineers that keep improving the algorithm. So I was paranoid over getting into it quickly before you have too many advertisers, too many people like me coming and polluting it. And so I was just moving fast. And about speed to market, look, think of, and I don't want to give my own examples, I'll just take Elon Musk. And look, how many times you'll see NASA or the European Space Agency or the Russians blowing up rockets? They haven't. Why? Because they weren't pushing the envelope fast enough, okay? Elon Musk blowing them every day, all the time. Why? Because he doesn't mind it. So it's part of his testing. And he understands that if I'll do it, I will be 100 years ahead of everybody else, because I was able to get into that unimaginable scenario where I can send a missile and it's going to explode. That was the biggest fear. People would always worry about that. So in his case, it's part of his equations, and he sends those rockets, they explode. But now, before you know it, he can bring them back to Earth, and he basically cut the cost in 90% in putting a satellite into orbit. So it was the same thing. I didn't mind failing. I'm too small to even be noticed. I will fail as much as I can. And by the time I'm big, I would have all those experiences in the past, and I needed them. Those are my stepping stone into the future. So I pushed everything. I had lots of mistakes. And when people talk about failures, I think the point of failure, don't think of a failure of a term of, I started a business, I failed, I moved on to another business. Within the business, as it grows, you have multiple failures. But you need to have those failures. See, you need that, right? So it was in the beginning, fail, it's okay, because I'm testing myself until I do course corrections, and then I move on. And then eventually when you grow, you had all those experiences. You can be much more efficient than everybody else. You can grow a business with about 150 employees that grows close to $500 million in sales, and you distribute more than 1 million boxes, and nobody understands how the heck did you get there with such a small crew. Because you know what? You get to be so efficient, and you keep running forward with this. And you didn't mind in the beginning doing all those experiments, and now your experience is different than someone else, and the mindset of your competition is mostly corporate. So they're not going to do it because they're afraid of being fired and so on. So you don't have that political part. So speed to market is a key, obviously not with blindfolds, but it is important to be fast. So I would always be that person that you would see blowing rockets in the air and then eventually making the impossible. Well, I make everything possible, but people were, if you want me.
That's a great point. And Elon is so fast that he actually sells his product before he even makes it. That's one great thing we can implement. Like, if you're worried about selling, have people pre-order your product, sell it before you even make it. That's one thing he's brilliant at.
Yep.
Yeah, he is. He's very masterful. Like I'm in the solar space, and we're just about to start taking our courses to be able to become certified installers for their roof panels. Now, how they're going to work, I don't know. But he made roof shingles. So now your entire roof is solar instead of just the solar panels. So and there's a back order. Like if you buy it today, you're lucky if you get it in 9 months. So yeah, he is a mastermind. I very much love what he does.
We are over time. I want to extend the opportunity for Ricky and his question, and then we'll lead into closing.
Thank you for having me on. Just quickly, I love what Edna said about the picks and the axes. That's my all-time favorite business lesson. My mentor taught me that 5 years ago, and I've been selling picks and axes to startups ever since. But my question is for Yosef. I'm a storyteller at heart, and that's my profession.
You need to tell us how to tell the story in 3 steps. You still owe me that.
I do owe you. I do owe you. I do owe you, and I will pay you that debt soon, very soon. But my question is going back to your story, sir. Where do you get your entrepreneurial spirit from? You mentioned your military experience when you were younger. I'm wondering, do you get your drive and your tenacity from there, or is it somewhere else? What do you put it down to?
Necessity. I wasn't legally allowed to get a job here in the US. So eventually I ran out of money and out-of-state tuition for international students, not very cheap. And I didn't have any money. So, you get tired of living on rice and ketchup. And you don't want to go back to Israel in the middle of your studies and then start everything all over again over there. So eventually you figure it out and you do it. I wasn't the entrepreneur that started at the age of 12 doing some things. And so I was not that kid. I would have, if I had my green card during my years, I probably would have had a job somewhere, I assume. Maybe not, but I would have been applying for jobs. So that's how I got it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This was a surprise for me. I really enjoyed, we touched on a lot of topics, a lot of elements to the topic. I learned a lot. I'm really looking forward to going back, listening to what we've recorded today, and providing you all with a recap later next week on our se.club blog. I will let Colin take the floor from here and see you next time, I guess.
Very good, Rachel. I think that was your first time actually being lead moderator, and did a great job. Next week, we're talking about scaling your business using Clubhouse. What are the techniques that business owners can do to help them scale their business, make their business grow faster? Thank you very much. Great job. And I really enjoyed Yosef and Ish and hearing everybody else. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom, Yosef.